Hey, everybody. Welcome back to my podcast. Thanks for joining in. It's been a long time since I have recorded and put something on here, but I'm really happy to be talking to the camera again and sharing with you guys just about my life and what I've been up to the last few months. The last time I came on here, I was talking and I was getting ready for my second QS event of the season within our WSL regional qualifying series. And that was at Sunset Beach. And I was kind of coming on here and just sharing with you guys the preparation, the mental preparation, the physical preparation I was doing to get ready for that. And just in general, where my thoughts and feelings were with all that. And then I was also sharing kind of like the mental tools that I had kind of built up over the last few months before that. That I was really just excited about and wanted to share with you guys. And so here I am coming back a long time later, but I'm recapping just that event and then the event I had following that one the next month and just how that all played out and ultimately how those mental tools and preparation techniques that I was using, that I was sharing with you guys about, how they benefited me in those events. Fortunately, I can say that I believe those tools really did come to my help because at Sunset, following my recording of the last podcast, I went on to get a third place finish in the final, which was, I guess, tied with my next best result because I had an equal third before when I was in a man-on-man semi in Tahiti 2 years ago now. But this was a final, and so it wasn't an equal third, it was just a solo third finish. And it was, at a really challenging wave. So that was probably one of my best results I've ever had. And then following that, I had an equal fifth at Haleiwa, which was our next QS event in December. So anyways, Sunset was, it was such a fun event, really, because I think going into it, it's really easy to expect that there's nothing much that's going to happen. It's a pretty simple, boring wave for the most part. It's just kind of a, slopey, not really, it doesn't really allow, it's like a really deep water wave. It's really far out in deep water. And so it doesn't allow for much progression in the lip. It's kind of just like a big, just like chunk of water that breaks. And so you don't have much options usually out there as far as like exciting surfing goes, but we did actually get some really good waves for it. And so there ended up being some like big kind of like sections to hit, I guess. What kind of makes it exciting, if there is anything that makes Sunset exciting, it's that it allows you to, when it's big, you can kind of try to like hit these kind of weird, big, chunky sections. And backside, that's a big challenge. Even frontside, it would be a challenge. But backside, your goal to get points is usually trying to be up critical in the pocket and pivoting. And so, for me, it was like there was a few days of the event where it was a fun challenge to get up there and kind of, have some like big moves where I was airdropping and try to get critical and in the pocket. Because generally speaking, for regular footers, they can kind of use their heel side edge and push and lean against the wave or like lean away from the wave and try to go more out on the shoulder of the wave and throw spray, which usually amounts to more points when you're being scored. Whereas backside, though you're on your toe side edge, it's just not as scoreable. It's not as good looking to do what people that are regular foot are doing. And so backside, you're trying to get a little bit more vertical with your board and in the pocket and in the lip. And so I was able to do some of that surfing, but what made the event, I would say, more fun than just the performance side of things was just, I felt like I really did have a breakthrough with just how consistent my heat structure was, my strategy, how few mistakes I had. That was honestly the highlight of the event for me, because Sunset, it can be a really tricky wave in competition. It can be really slow and inconsistent. So if you fall on a good wave, then you might not get another chance at a good wave. So you kind of have to be careful. But like I said, backside, you kind of have to be risky and critical if you want to get good, like score high points. And so that part of it's tough. Another part of stuff is just the wave selection. A lot of waves look good, but then end up closing out, or look like they're going to close out, and so you don't go, but then they end up turning out to be like a nice long wall that you could do turns on. Um, there's a lot of different challenges that wave brings. It's also, I explained in the last podcast, but it's a huge, huge lineup. It's like you have basically 200 yards roughly of like area that you could sit and position yourself in for a wave. But in a heat, you have to be really careful because that means you could create a lot of distance between you and your competitor. And so they could get a good wave that you didn't even see because you were 200 yards away from them. And so you just have to be careful in that way. And you have to kind of have a well thought out plan, but not necessarily create a plan that you're sticking to 100%. You have to be adaptable because otherwise your plan kind of becomes a bias, and then you kind of stick to a plan when the ocean might be changing or your competitor might be doing something different than you expected. You have to be adaptable, really, really adaptable out there. And so, though no event can be surfed perfectly, I don't think there was any heat that I had out there that was just like flawless. I had a really, really good strategy for the most part. And there a lot of even the simple decisions I made in the competition under pressure were a result of being calm and collected because of where I had got my mind before the heat. And so anyways, I ended up with a third place result. And so I figured I'd just walk you guys through heat by heat, maybe even start with like the day before the contest. Also, if it looks like I'm tearing up or I have like a funny sound in my voice, it's because I'm getting over a little bit of a cold right now. But nevertheless, I guess we'll start with kind of the day before the competition. Or I guess we'll start with like the morning of. So I think I'd explained to you guys a lot about before the event, I was doing a lot of journaling and visualizing. And one of my favorite things that I was able to do looking back on that helped a lot was this kind of mental walkthrough of the competition that I wrote down in a journal, where I basically started writing down on paper, like almost like a script, like a narrative of the contest. And I started with the day of the contest, waking up in the morning, what happens, what my first thought is in bed. And then from there, kind of like, not necessarily detail by detail. Like then I take, then I walk over to the closet and I put on my shirt. Then I walk to the kitchen and I do not like that detailed, but enough where a lot of like the elements of preparation were covered that kind of stick out to me on the preparation day. Like maybe like what I'm eating for breakfast, I'll write that down, and what I'm thinking about as I'm eating breakfast and what I'm thinking about as I'm driving down the hill. And so I wrote down all these different details, but I used kind of like I was talking about in the last episode, I wrote down a lot about this powerful imagery and powerful kind of descriptive words to describe how I was thinking and feeling as I went through the day of competition. And so, yeah, I guess what I did really was I had written this really long and detailed script of what the day of competition looked like all the way up until the final heat of the contest. Talking about, and it's hard when you get to like a heat because a heat could go any which way. So you don't want to write down a script of how the heat goes, but you do want to write down how you're feeling throughout the heat and how you're able to control yourself throughout the heat. Basically writing down all the details of the things that I can control. So as I'm paddling out, I can write down, my eyes are looking at the lineup. I'm focused. The only thing I see right now is just the waves. I'm not looking at the other competitors. I'm not looking at the beach, at the crowd. I'm just looking at the waves. And I'm studying the intervals between the waves and how long it takes for each wave to go. I'm writing all this down in my journal. And so I wrote down all these different details, and then the day came, and it was just so cool because I had read this little narrative so many times before the day of competition that once it came, it felt like and because I had visualized it, when I was writing all these different details down, I was also taking time to visualize it as I went over it and close my eyes and think about all these different, things I'd written out. And so when the day came, it felt like I was just reliving what I'd already lived over and over and over again in my mind, but in real life. And so everything just flowed really seamlessly. And my thoughts, I had my thoughts planned out. Like that was kind of the coolest thing I was thinking about. I was like, I planned out everything I was going to think that day, and knew it so well that when the day came, it was just, I had nothing else to think about but what I had written down. And so as I'm driving down the hill, I'm just looking around. I'm choosing to look out the window and look at all these different things I'm passing, the fire station or the grocery store or the school or whatever it is I'm passing. And I'm thinking about, I'm driving to this event right now and I'm seeing all these things that I've seen hundreds and hundreds of times because I'm at home. This is my home break. This is where I'm familiar. Like I'm familiar with all these things I'm seeing. I'm comfortable here. This is like all these different positive kind of like confidence building thoughts were attached to what I was seeing. And then as I went through it, I really just felt that same confidence that I had felt when I was visualizing it before. And so anyways, the competition day came and I was able to, walk through all that stuff and feel confident as I was getting down there and getting ready. A cool bonus is that I like to treat the practice surf. So every morning before a contest starts, basically all of the competitors are out there getting the last little bit of practice before the event starts. Cause then you can't, you have 8 hours of a contest and that you can't practice out there, and you want to feel comfortable on your board, and the waves might be different that day. So you want to get a good feel for how the waves are. So you have from like 6 a.m. or first light to like 8 a.m. when the contest starts. And usually I've chosen to treat those sessions as nothing more than just seeing things with my eyes and observing. I'm not out there to prove anything. I'm not out there to look at other people surfing to see how they're doing and how well they're surfing or how good their boards look under their feet. I'm just out there to see where the waves are breaking. I have like a list of goals, like see where the waves are breaking, know which waves are good, and make sure that my board feels like it's the right board for that day, and then go in, and that's it. And what was cool about the morning of the contest was I went out there with that goal, and then I ended up getting like a bunch of really fun waves. And that just built my, I was already confident, which in contrast to a lot of other days in the past where I've, been out there the morning of the contest and I'm just staring at everybody else, seeing how they're surfing, feeling like I'm not getting as good of waves as them, and then trying to surf really, really good and falling because I'm trying too hard. Like contrasting that with like the morning of the event at sunset, I was like, I was already confident without even having to surf good. And then I actually ended up surfing good and getting some fun waves. So I was like super confident, strutting up the beach, just like feeling good about myself. And then I'm trying to remember, I don't think my heat was until like late in the afternoon. It was like 3 p.m. or something. And so I probably just went home, got some food, chilled, didn't think about much, didn't go on my phone too much, just kind of relaxed and probably stretched. And then I went down for my heat, and my first heat was just so crazy because I went out there, the waves were firing. Like it was as good as sunset gets. Like probably, here on the North Shore, we'd say it's probably 8 to 10 foot Hawaiian, which means the front of the wave is probably 18 feet tall. Like it was just really, really big waves. And so, and I was with a good buddy of mine, Finn McGill, who we had been practicing because we have the same surf coach, Ross Williams. We were running a ton of mock heats, which are basically like we go out in a normal session without jerseys, without being in an actual contest, and we bring out our watches and we time ourselves and we pretend like we're in a heat, and we like score our own waves and share that with each other, and we use priority just between ourselves to determine who gets to catch what wave. And we had been doing that with Ross for like 2 weeks before this event, like so much. We probably got like, 10 different sessions in leading up to the contest that we were running mock heats. And then my first heat is with him. And so that part of it was kind of fun because I thought, this is just another mock heat. It's just another practice. I can just treat it like that. It's a familiar face. And then, and the waves were firing. So there was just that level of like excitement about just getting to go surf good waves. And then the heat started, and naturally I had just the first heat nerves. The first heat of every contest for some reason is always just the most nerve wracking. And I was able to I had, my mental walkthrough. I had all the different thoughts that I had planned out. I was going through them. I had my little routines of confident thinking that were all helping me, and I was feeling really good and as prepared as I possibly could be. All the information in front of me was being used to my advantage to feel good about myself. And then I went out there and I felt super nervous, which I obviously knew this is okay. Nerves are usually, there's usually a lot of nerves in the first heat. If I feel shaky, that's just because my body's ready to go. It's just like twitching. It wants to go. So I'm using these thoughts to my advantage, but then I pulled the trigger on like a bad wave, I remember, in that first heat. And I like used priority for it. And the heat was already a couple minutes into it. And I got like a 3-point ride or something, which on that day was pretty below average. Most people were, making heats with at least 10 points. And so I got like a 3, and then I kicked out, paddled back out. I got like a really good wave and I fell. And I got like another like 2 or 3. And then meanwhile, Finn got like 2 really good waves pretty quickly into the heat. He had like 12 points, I want to say. So I was like nearly comboed to get into first place. Second place, I needed like a 4 or something. And then it went quiet, I remember, for a while. And then eventually another wave came and I went and I fell again. And now I'm just like, I'm remaining confident. My head is in the game. I can still make the heat. I don't need a big score at all. But I'm in third place and I need like a 4.5 or something like that. And there was, I want to say, 2.5 minutes left. And I waited with priority. And then a really good wave came. And it was like a really, really big wave that had like this white water roll in. So it broke way outside of us. And so in order to catch the wave, you need to literally put yourself inside of the white water as it's rolling and hope that it kind of pushes you onto the shoulder. And then you can pop up, kind of like a delayed pop up. And so I put myself in the spot, got hit by the white water. And this is like, you got to imagine like 20 feet of just white water just surging. And it's like at any moment, it can just kind of like project you in a weird direction. And I got to my feet inside of the white water. And as I was rolling down, I was at the bottom of the wave, almost into like the clear water where like your fins engage and it's like a little bit more, you're in a little bit more control. Right before that, my fins kind of drifted a little bit and my nose poked underwater and I flew forward and I did like a somersault at the bottom of this wave. And then this is where like, I don't even understand, like all that I can say is that God literally like manipulated the water around me or something, because in any other situation in that position, I should have been pushed forward in front of the wave, had the lip land on me, or been sucked over into the lip and then shot way out in front of the wave and just washed like 200 yards in like 5 or 10 seconds. Like it should have just been an absolute wipeout, like the wipeout of all wipeouts. I was in the worst place possible. And yet somehow and as I fell, I was like, well, that's it. Like there's 2 minutes left and I need a score. I'm going to get pushed so far in that it's going to take me at least 5 or 6 minutes just to get back out to the lineup to catch a wave. So that's it. But as I fell, somehow I like penetrated the water and made it under enough that the wave like just left me behind, like just completely passed me up and didn't suck me into it. And so I came up from it like in 2 seconds. Like I literally fell, the wave just like washed over somehow and I didn't get pulled into it. And I was just like I guess my only thought and reaction was like, there's still time. Like I can still get the score. And so I paddled back out. Obviously that would have been like a 1-point ride, or not even a 1 because I just fell on the takeoff. But so anyways, I'm paddling back out and I'm just thinking, okay, I don't need much. I just need a wave that allows me to do like maybe 1 or 2 turns on it. And I don't need to do anything crazy. I just need to get that chance. Just look for a wave. Just my eyes are just scanning and I'm just in full like focused mode, kicking, paddling really hard. I get back out. There's probably about 50 seconds left of the heat at this point, and a wave comes and there's nobody around me. And I have priority and I take it. And then at that point, I don't know what I was thinking because I still am mad at myself that I chose to surf like this, but I basically took off and I did like a little check snap thing that would have been like by itself maybe 2 points or something. So after I did that little snap, I only needed maybe another 2 points or something. If I was thinking this through, that's what I should have thought is, okay, I just need to go down the line and do another little snap. And then I got the score. But the wave started like sucking up and running down the line, and there was a barrel on it. And Sunset is just not a wave that you want to pull into because it's so unpredictable and bouncy and shaky, and you need to be balancing so much in a barrel, let alone a barrel at Sunset. It's just not a good idea if you want to make the wave. And somehow my brain just kind of blacked out and told me to pull in. And so I like pulled up with this weird kind of like stink bug. We call it stink bug, but like wide-legged stance. And I just grabbed my rail and pulled in and hit this big bump and shook around and then came out of the barrel. And I feel like I don't even remember deciding to do that or remembering how I felt coming out. But I came out, and then there was a little section, like a closeout little thing, and I hit it and rode out. And I just was absolutely baffled. Like, I couldn't believe what had just happened in the last 2 minutes. I was just shocked and and speechless. And especially the fact that it was in the first heat of the event, which you're usually, you're nervous, but usually you're just breezing through that. To be in a situation like that, to be up against the ropes, and then to like have a weird opportunity, fall, have another opportunity, and then get like barreled backside. It was just the weirdest series of events. But anyways, I found out I got like a big score and I made the heat, and it was just the weirdest first heat I've ever had, especially out at Sunset. But it was also a huge confidence builder. I took it completely to mean all the right things, that I was ready, that I was cool under pressure, that I could perform under pressure, that I probably won't be in another situation like that the rest of the event. So I probably have a lot less things I need to be stressed about. Like, I'd already done the hardest thing you can do, which is get a big score when you need it. Yeah, actually, I didn't need a big score, but get a big score when you need a score. And then, the rest of the event basically turned into a really, really easy series of events. The next few heats I started a lot better. I fixed my mistakes from that first heat, and I picked really good waves at the beginning. That was like a big deal for me. I got like I picked like the right waves. I had good wave selection. And then I was really good about my priority. I was able to sit on people, which basically means, I was using my priority to take waves that they would need to get the score to beat me. And so I was doing that well. I was not falling. I was like finishing really confidently. And I had just a lot of like really simple, like the exact sort of heats that you want to have, where you start good and you finish good. And then I got to the final, and that was a blast. My really good friend Luke Tima won the whole event in the final, and all of us were really close, actually. I felt really confident in that heat. I maybe made a few mistakes. One wave I fell. I couldn't have really controlled that, unfortunately. That probably would have been the score to put me in first. And then I had another wave where I did like one nice turn, and then if I had done another turn, I would have probably got the score, but the wave kind of like ran off without me. And so anyways, that was the event. And I got third place. I made a final. That was my first final I'd ever made in a QS. And so, that was like just a huge breakthrough for me, especially considering I had a good result earlier in the year in June, but I think that I just chose to not go to that place mentally where I thought I still need a really good result if I want to be high enough on the rankings to have a good shot at the Challenger Series at the end of the season. I just wasn't thinking like that. I was just taking it heat by heat, staying confident, choosing to use only those positive thoughts to my advantage. And ended up in the final, ended up getting third, got plenty of points. That really helped my cause. And then from Sunset, we went straight into the next event about 3 weeks later at Haleiwa. And obviously I was just coming off of a good result, so I was really stoked. I was really confident. And part of me wishes that I had maybe taken a little bit more advantage of that time, because the truth is I was so confident coming from Sunset that I felt like I didn't even need to work that much on my confidence going into Haleiwa, which is great. And it's something that you want, but it's also something that you don't want to fall into that trap of like not preparing because you feel so confident. That is kind of a good way to create like a blind spot. and to just be like unprepared for certain situations. And so I did prepare mentally a good amount for that. I did visualize, I did my walkthroughs and journaled all the different details of how I want to feel. And again, it was just really cool to have an event at home where I felt so comfortable. Haleiwa is the first wave, I believe, that I learned how to surf at when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So a lot of things were already set up for me to be confident going into that event. So luckily it wasn't an event I had to really fight that much mentally to feel confident. But that event started really well for me. The waves were really, really big. Again, kind of like Sunset in the first round. It was really, really big. And I just like went out there and didn't expect myself to surf too good and to like surf up to like, you know, the waves are good, so I have to surf great. It was kind of more like, okay, the waves are good, so if I surf normal, I'll get scored good because the opportunity is there. And that I did, luckily, and still had a few different situations where it was hard because I had to play defense and I had to block other people with priority. But I was able to get through it. And then the heat that I kind of wanted to talk about at Haleiwa was the quarterfinals. So I made my first heat. The second heat was a little bit of a tough one. The waves were slow, but I had a really strong start and surfed it through confidently, made the right decisions. And then the third heat, I basically went against two tour surfers, which is they're at the highest level. They're on the championship tour. And then another great surfer who was previously on the Challenger Series that year. That last season he was on the Challenger Series. And so here I am. On paper, I'm going against two surfers that are at the highest level and one surfer that's almost at the highest level competitively. And I've never been at either of those levels yet. And it could have been a tough one mentally, but I guess I just was in such a confident place with the last event, with the preparation, with how that event had gone so far, where I was really able to just use everything to my advantage. So I thought, okay, these are tour surfers. So if I can beat them, if I can even beat one of them, like I'm beating someone at that level. And if I can beat them, then I can beat anyone in this event. And also not only that, but like they just because they're from the tour, that doesn't necessarily give them an advantage in that heat beyond their experience. It doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily get the best wave or they're going to do the best surfing. They still have to go out there and do those things. And I have that same opportunity as them. And so I went out there and that heat, like for whatever reason, it just felt like one of those heats where I realized in order to make this, I have to do my best surfing. And that kind of simplified it. It can be tough when you're going against someone that's maybe a little bit lower level, where you're constantly thinking, how good do I have to surf to beat this person? That heat was like, I just have to surf my very best. Obviously, I don't want to fall. I don't want to go push or try too hard, but I got to do my best surfing. So anyways, that heat started and I put myself in the right spot to start the heat strong with a really big score, which in a heat like that, you just don't want to start with a small score. Not only when the judges know who's surfing, right? And so when they know someone's at a tour level and they see someone at a lower level start with a mediocre wave, there's just something about it where I think naturally they want to see you going all out and having the best opportunity to even compete with them. And so I didn't want to set the scale low. I want to set it really high. And so I waited, and I don't even think I was the first one to stand up in that heat, but I did get the first best wave of the heat, or the first good wave of the heat, I should say. And I surfed it strong, confident. I was focused on my timing. I was in the present. I wasn't focused on down the line at the end of the wave. I was just focused on that first turn and making sure it was a big turn. And I did that, and then I got a couple more good turns, and then I kicked out, and I got a big score. And then I went back out and again, just waited. I was like, if I've already done this once, I can do it again. I started with a big score. That's a solid foundation. Obviously, I don't want to go the whole heat waiting to catch a wave, but like when I go back out, I want to use this opportunity of having a big score to get another big score. And I did that. I waited my turn, finished it. I want to say I claimed that wave. Even I did a little one of these things. And so yeah, that was it. Felt really good about that heat, finished it, and ended up I want to say I maybe even comboed one of the guys that was on tour, which was like, in my book, there's no better feeling. It's like here you are, or here they are at a high level coming to do your event, and then you beat them. It's a great feeling. So anyways, that was just, a textbook heat for me. I was really happy with it. I surfed it the way I wanted to surf it, and it was a huge confidence builder. And then I showed up the next day, or maybe 2 days later, for my semifinal heat. And that heat, probably the nerves got to me a little bit too much. I made a lot of like hasty decisions where I was surfing my waves, not really like, I feel like if I was a little bit more calm, I would have timed my surfing better. I was kind of getting stuck up in the lip. I wasn't surfing down the line to give myself more turns and more opportunities down the line. I was kind of just pushing really hard on the first turn. And then I also took a couple waves that probably weren't the best waves. That in retrospect, I probably should have waited with priority, picked a better wave, and probably surfed just a little bit calmer. That probably would have helped me make the heat. And then at the end of the heat, I needed a score, and I broke my board, unfortunately. And then so I had to go into the beach and switch my board, and then got back out, and there just wasn't enough time in the heat for me to catch another wave. So that was that. I finished third out of 4 people, so I didn't qualify for the final, but I had an equal 5th place result. So after Haleiwa, I mean, 100%, this is the best run of events I've ever had. Equal 5th, a 3rd place, and then another equal 5th. I was on top of the world. I actually knew at some point in that heat at some point in that contest that I'd qualified for the World Junior Championships, which is at the end of every season, or at the end of every year, like year to date. At the end of like December, they decide where it's going to be, who qualifies. And I knew that I was high enough ranked to qualify for that. So that was really cool. And then, just like I knew that we had one more event left in Tahiti in March. And so I was like, all right, here I am. I'm in a really good place to qualify for the Challenger Series. And obviously all I could say was that it was due to this change in my preparation mentally. I was confident. I was focused on confidence, whereas in the past I was probably focused on results and what I was doing and how good I was surfing before, instead of just where I was at mentally and processing my thoughts and planning out my thoughts. I focused on all the right things, and that really, really made the difference for me in those 2 events. And I'm super stoked. I know that that's not the highest achievement I can go for. I can go even beyond that. And, I can set higher goals than that and even have higher standards than that for myself. But that still felt amazing. And it still felt like a huge step in the right direction. Just where I was at, how those events went. And then, in terms of like reaching my goals, my biggest goal, that season was to qualify for the Challenger Series. And so that was like, and it was actually my goal for like the last 2 seasons. And so to be in that position just felt really rewarding. And I think I got to milk that confidence out as much as I could, and use all of it to my advantage going into the last event of the season. So anyways, coming out of all that, I don't want to go on too long and keep you guys listening to me talking about my events and just these different little stories and my heats and all that. But I did want to share with you guys just those important highlights of those events and kind of the things that really made those results happen. I think that there's a lot more to say about just the end of the season and comparing that season in like the full length of that season with the year before, where I had a lot worse results. There's a lot to be said about that. And I want to talk more about that in the future in another episode. But I think that it's also important to remember that in all of this, like, I felt like I learned a lot about how to do my job well and to actually see results that I want to get out of it and how to achieve my goals the way I want to competitively. That was just like a huge step in the right direction, a huge breakthrough. Those 2 events were, in that period of time in the winter was huge for me. And then there's even more that happened after that I'll share about in the next episode here. But it's also important to remember that, like, in all of it, I feel like I did have this sense of like whether it had been a repeat of a bad season for me or not, or whether it would have, turned into led me down some other path of thinking that, this isn't my year. And is this really what I should be doing? I was talking about that in the last episode. It's really easy to go down that bad rabbit hole of thinking when you're not doing well competitively. But the anchor in all of it, whether I am doing good or I'm not doing good, whether I'm planning on continuing to do these contests and competing because I know I can, or whether I'm feeling really bad about it and I don't, the most important thing in all of it is that I'm realizing that God, his character doesn't change whether or not I have the results I want to have or not. His character doesn't change just because my confidence is low or I feel like surfing is not for me, like that. He's so much higher and better and bigger than that. And his plans for our lives and his will and how we should live our lives is so much more important than just the results I get because I'm working hard with surfing or not. I think it's really easy just with this whole competitive process to have these thoughts and feelings and moments of success become overinflated and to mean more than they're actually worth. They are great, but at the end of the day, it's just something I'm spending my time doing. It's just an activity, basically. It doesn't actually have much merit to it in terms of like my success as a human being and my character and God's character. Whether or not I had those things, it doesn't change that God's plan is still great and that what he wants me to do is still more important than just the events and the results I'm getting. I'm realizing that you can choose to live your life a certain way. You can choose to be a surfer and do contests, but it's most important that as you're doing that, you're using it as an opportunity to serve God with your talents and to give him the glory and to, in the daily mundane parts of it, whether it's training or practicing or in between heats or when you lose, using those moments to have your eyes fixed on him instead of just this up and down, this little just this season of life that I'm in where I'm surfing. So anyways, I just wanted to balance it out with that as a final thought because it is really easy to just tell these stories and get caught up in just the excitement of it all. And it is something to I want to share with you guys so that you can find, whatever success you're looking for with your sport or whatever it is you're doing and hopefully use my stories as a way to encourage you guys, especially with like the mental confidence and preparation side of things. But ultimately, yeah, it's so important to have it all on top of the foundation that God is good. He loves us. He cares about us. He has a plan for us. He has a will for us that we can follow regardless of what career we choose or what results we get. So anyways, that's kind of just what I wanted to end it with. And I'll be back again soon to talk about just all the rest of the things that have happened in the last few months. It's a bummer that I haven't been recording more and sharing with you guys as I go, but I'm going to catch you guys up to speed here in the next few episodes and then keep on going from there. All right. Thank you guys for listening. See ya.